everyone, welcome to the show Youth on the Move. This is a new project, a new venture by the New Generation chapter in collaboration with Women in Management, where we bring out the stories, the interesting stories of some special youth scattered all over the island who were identified and recognized for their potential at the New Generation Awards 2020, which was held last year. So today too, I do have an interesting personality, a beautiful lady here who was awarded the Best Young Professional of the Year 2020 at the New Generation Awards last year. So welcome on board Nadines Weerasinghe. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Nadines, now for all of you who are viewing us from the luxury of home, I would just call Nadines from her profession. She is a speech and language pathologist, right? So this is not something that we are often used to hearing, because pathology, when it comes to my mind, like, you know, if someone says pathology, I'll obviously I'll quickly think about microbiology, but this is not something related to that at all. So I'd like Nadines herself to tell us what exactly her field of expertise is.
Hi, thank you again, Lihini, for having me, and also thank you for this platform that has been given so that we can raise awareness about our profession as well. So professionally, I go as a speech and language pathologist, also as a speech and language therapist. The term pathologist is because the term varies all across the world. So in the UK, the profession goes as speech and language therapy, whereas in the US, it goes as speech and language pathology. So in Sri Lanka, the professional association has decided to use the term speech and language pathologist. So what we do is we treat conditions that's related to speech, language, communication, and also eating and swallowing disorders. So that is the area that we treat in an adult or a child. We come in as a medical professional, so we are registered at the Sri Lanka Medical Council as well as Sri Lanka Association of Sri Lanka Medical Council as well as the Sri Lanka Medical Association. So so that way those are the credentials that we need in order to be a professional in this area.
Right, so nice. So I think we got an overview of what her profession and her field of expertise is. Now, I also hear that you are a product of a state university. Am I right?
Yes, I think I'm very proud to say that I am. Yes, I am.
Yes, coming from a fellow university student, an alumnus actually.
Yeah.
So I'm also proud to have her here. Now she has gone all the way up to, I think she's also doing her postgraduate studies, and she's almost on the verge of finishing it, right? So she has chosen a niche that a lot of people are less aware of, and also she has come all the way to this point being a state university student. So I would say now, Nadines, we have a very different notion about state university students. I'm not trying to, marginalize on anyone, but we always think, our aim has to be to graduate and then find a job. Doesn't matter whether it's in your area or not. Yeah. As long as you find a job, you get paid, you go home, and that's it, right? But then there must have been something that triggered you, that made you take a path which is less traveled by, and there must have been something that triggered you to choose this particular field, regardless of lack of opportunities. Right. So would you like to talk more on that, about how you came to this point from being a state university student?
Yes. So like I said, I proudly say that I'm a product of Sri Lanka and of the state university system, mainly because I feel I was privileged to be able to understand what Sri Lanka is like by being part of a state university. So I studied at a private school, but again I had the opportunity to get into the state system through the A-level examination. And the reason I chose this profession was mainly because I really love working with children. I love children, and something that I always had, since I was small, is I would love to go and play with children, and children like me, I like children. So then I knew this particular course had some component to do with children. So then I was like, okay, fine. I mean, I had results to, to apply to, pretty much any course that I wanted to once A-levels were finished. Then I thought, okay, fine. I mean, this looks like something that might interest me. Why don't I do that? So at the time when I applied, this was almost about 7-8 years ago. So this is very new. Not a lot of people knew what it was. Not even a lot of doctors knew what it was. So then I used to ask around people, and they were like, "Oh, it's pretty new. It's a good area," but nobody really knew what it entails until we went into it. So the course in itself was new to the university, and the lecturers had to really like outsource people. They had to bring out a lot of resources in order to teach us. But I think that all served for our advantage, because on the go we also learned how to do things in a low resource setting. We also learned how to adapt into a low resource setting. So although this profession is much established in the West and in some of the in the States, in the UK, in Sri Lanka we had to be very we had to be adaptable to be able to get the same results for our clients or our patients whilst having minimal resources. So that education I feel I got because I was part of a state university system, and because of state medical education. Because in the state medical education, how they produce doctors and other medical professionals are that they are able to go into any part of Sri Lanka, whether to the rural parts, whether they have facilities or not, and be able to be competent enough to treat the patients. So I feel that exposure and that level of adaptability I got in the profession because I was part of a state university system. So I mean, I'm very grateful. I mean, of course I have learned from the taxpayers' money, and I believe that I have been able to do something for that money as well. But and also many people who have many lecturers who have contributed for us to be where we are today. Including from the top level of the academics who has done that. So I'm extremely grateful that we got that exposure.
I'm actually very happy to hear that you are attributing part of your success to the free education that you received. So and that the fact that you mentioned taxpayers' money. Now it sounds to me like you put your passion into action, right? So it was the love for children that triggered you into choosing this particular course.
Yeah.
So now that since you have worked as a professional in this field, I'd like to ask you how it is like in Sri Lanka, in the Sri Lankan community. Now, we hear about a lot of disorders among children in the Sri Lankan community, but I personally have not heard a lot of significance being given to children with speech delays. So, which is also your niche, right?
Yeah.
So, as a professional, how have you perceived the situation, and what sort of input would you like to give to create more awareness in this regard?
Yes, Lihini. So it is my specialty to treat children and also adults with speech issues. But when you talk about children, I mean, I can't stress enough on the importance of what we call early intervention and early identification, because I mainly treat children at this point. So there are children who come once they have actually reached almost finishing the point of development. Of course, we still treat them, but in terms of outcomes and in terms of speaking scientifically, the outcomes that we could get is minimal compared to if the child came earlier on. So speech delay is very, very prevalent, and it's treatable. So many times what happens is, because of culture, because of what other people say who are not medical professionals, people delay coming to a professional to get help for children having speech delays. So this could result in permanent effects in a child's life. So if you think about speech, communication, language, those skills are one of the primary and one of the fundamental skills a child needs to be able to go to school, to be able to make friends, to be able to communicate, basically to be able to be functional in society. And if a child is deprived of these services, this child can end up having a disability, and it could be a significant disability. So many a times the identification process happens through the pediatrician, if not a general GP, or even sometimes the preschool teachers, the parents come to us identifying it themselves. So sometimes raising awareness at multiple layers is needed so that these children get the proper intervention that they need at a timely interval in their life. So when I say timely interval, so 0 to 5 is where the brain development happens at a peak. Then it tends to plateau. Right? So while it's happening at a peak like this, that is the point where we come in and we start giving therapies in order to stimulate and boost this language and speech development. So if that is delayed, and if they come later on, say after 5 or after 8, this process is going to be much harder for the parents and also for us sometimes. So what we do at this point is, as medical professionals and as other professionals have got organized, and they are doing what we call screening examinations. So if any child in a nursery or in a daycare is they suspect the child to be having a delay, they are identified early and then sent on for intervention. So that if that is being done, the results we can improve on the results. What we do as professionals is we try to get this child as much as they need to be able to come to the level where they're supposed to be. So that's what we do from our profession.
So Nadine, I hear that you are a consultant at one of the leading hospitals in Colombo. So which also means, I perceive from that families from an urban setting would reach out to you, and that you will be able to help them, and it's just a matter of level of awareness. But let's just break a little away from that, and let's reach the ground level. Let's reach the rural communities. I'm sure that there's not a lot of awareness at that level. I'm guessing, right? So what is your take on that? Are parents from rural communities aware of speech delays, or what to do when you when you spot something like that in your child? Or do you, as a professional, as a part of a professional organization as well, dedicated to the same cause, so have you thought of any approach to break into the communities and basically to an entire island-wide approach? Is there any island-wide approach that you have thought of?
Okay, so that's a very important question, Lihini. So you told that I mainly treat the urban population, correct? But also after graduating, I worked at the university. So as we worked in the university, we were able to do clinics, and so I treated patients in the Faculty of Medicine, University of California, at the clinic that they had set up for children with developmental delays. So to this particular place, children from all over the country would come, because at the time, some couple of years ago, not many facilities were available throughout the country for these kind of conditions. So I had the exposure of being exposed to to all segments of society who are seeking help for certain conditions like what we treat. So what I feel is, yes, awareness is important to start off with, but beyond that, there is also the dedication of the parent and of whoever is bringing the child to be able to give this child the necessary help they want. So that part, we have seen it certainly more in the rural sector. But at the same time, in the urban sector, the demands a child has is much more than what you compare it to with the rural sector. For example, if it's a farming family, all that the parent wants the child is to be able to bring the water to the farm and water the plants and look after their thing. Whereas in an urban sector, the child has massive demands. You have to go to university, you have to find a job, you have to mingle with this type of society. So the demands kind of vary from each socio-economic stratas. So depending on that, the level of people seeking for help for these kind of conditions also differ. But the point is, these are all children needing intervention, and who could be given significant elevation to their impairment if the proper treatment is given. So what we need to do is, so at this point, there is a center called the Ayati Center at the Ragama Medical Faculty. It's a center for excellence for children with disabilities. They provide services for children coming from all across the country. So they act as a center for excellence. It's a national center for excellence. So the Ayati Center is one of the model centers that has been built so that all the professionals can come into one place to be able to treat a child with a disability. So they have medical professionals, they have people from the educational sector, they have people from the social work sector. So they have all these professionals coming together to treat this one child who is in need of help. So they act as one of, like I said, a model institute at present, which is related to the government, which is part of the government entity. In the private sector, we don't, however, have this facility. So in the private sector, because whoever access private sector has better financial capabilities than people who access the public sector for health needs. So they come and then they individually have to go to different places to get this get these help needed. So That's how it's been currently done, and the awareness, the level of awareness, of course, it's a continuous process. And I would feel from the time that we were studying up until now, the awareness has definitely been raised. And but it's the question is, how more can we raise it? How more can we tell parents, not just in Colombo but also out in outskirts of Colombo, that bring your child for intervention, bring whoever has a communication or speech language issue for intervention, because speech therapy can make a huge impact in their lives. So that awareness, yes, we are doing it, whilst also professionally, because as a professional, we need to continue to update our knowledge. We need to continue to make sure that our treatment is evidence-based. So we need to continue to work on that area whilst also working on awareness. And like I said before, Lihini, our state university has trained us to be able to go anywhere, to any part of this country, and be able to give the treatment that these children require. So and right now in all in the big government sector hospitals, speech therapists are already being placed. So there is access for children to be able to have this help right now. So that's something that we need to commend the systems, to commend the governments, commend all who have been actively working over the years for these kind of problems.
So speaking, or basically the skill of speech, whether it's rural or urban, every child is in imperative need of that, right? Yeah. So I think now you have given us a good overview on what the situation is like. Now at one point you mentioned that IIT Center, which I also have seen pictures and posts about, which I also personally appreciate, is a venture, it's an initiative by the government. And you also mentioned that in the private sector, those who have the financial capacity would approach the private sector, but then again there seems to be a gap between public sector and the private sector, especially in this field. Now as someone who is working closely with the government, I'm always looking at spaces where we can plug in with the private sector and develop engage in development initiatives that would ultimately be positively impactful on the ground level, on the people. So do you see any opportunities as such? Do you think that it would be great for the public and private sectors to partner in ventures like these? But what sort of idea do you have in this regard?
Definitely. So if you actually talk about the IIT Center, it was an initiative done by the Hemas group. So they initiated it, and the government as well as other organizations came in to help it. So there are many. There is Access Engineering that helped. There are many. I may not be doing justice if I don't mention all the entities that has contributed to it, but there are many who came in to help IIT, because this was a national need. And Kumar Sangakkara, Roshan Mahanama, Professor Nilanthi De Silva, and there were many trustees in this fund who made sure that the public-private sector partnership was brought in to bring up such a entity. So already there is that partnership happening at IIT. But also the question again, what you're saying is, can there be more partnerships? By all means, yes. Because of course, whilst it can be a role model, there can be other niches that other public-private sector partnerships can go towards. Because this is, whilst it's so at the IIT Center, it's the public sector institute, not done for profit. But when it comes to the private sector, of course, it's just like private healthcare services, it will be done for profit. So there is a different thought of thinking, there's a different way of thinking. It's a business development aspect as well that's involved in it. However, if you also get the public sector involved, the quality of it, the outcomes of it won't be compromised. Because coming from again, I think
more responsible,
owing to the state university, the background that we have got. So you would be more conscientious. I'm not saying that this doesn't mean that whoever has qualified abroad is not conscientious, but in general, someone who has been a beneficiary of state medical education would be more conscientious, I would feel, about the outcome of the patient, and not many a times about the money. So this statement may be controversial in some sense, but I feel personally that is what we have been trained for in that in the state medical education system. So and the other thing is, so when I used to work at the university, again for the public sector, so people would come and ask, also, where can I see you at a private hospital? So although I was doing private practice for the patients for the clients who would come to see me at the public sector, I would say, no, I'm not seeing you at the private sector, because it's me. Whether I see at the public sector or at the private sector, it's the same amount, the same service that you will receive. I'm not doing anything additional. in the private sector. So that is the level of training that we have received, because end of the day we feel responsible for our clients. Sometimes we would follow up with them, we would personally call and say, amma baba again yada ginavene mehema karanne. So sometimes because we are passionate about our profession, we follow up like that. So it's not necessarily for the monetary gain, but it's more for the need that child has at that point in their lives.
So the mode of income, it's not just the mode of income.
Correct.
It's actually a service that you do. So
Correct.
That's how you think, right?
That's
so
how, yes.
Yeah, which is very appreciable coming from a very young lady in the profession. So looking back at your life, now Nadini, if I ask you, like, have you ever faced gender bias in your profession? Because, like, for you to be outstanding in academics and also to venture into a very new arena, right? Have you ever got caught up in this gender bias or gender inequality? What was it like in the medical profession for you?
Well, so this profession, quite interestingly, I would say about 90% of speech and language pathologists or speech and language therapists are women. So we are saturated. In fact, the gender biases turn the other way around in this profession. So we are, surrounded by women. And for me, I have never found it, sometimes they say when you work with women, it's not, all that pleasant and all of that. But to be honest, I really haven't. It's been a joy to be able to serve with other women. And so I mentioned this to you earlier also, many a times when we approach a family with a family that comes with a child with a speech delay, it's the mother who brings this child. It's the mother who is devastated or depressed, and who comes and tells ane muka khari karanna mela or they so if you are not enjoying working or helping another woman, I think it will be hard to be successful in this career, because you feel for that mother, you feel for another woman who is in need of help. So sometimes being a woman has given us an advantage in this profession to be able to empathize, to be able to give the children the treatment they need, understanding from what kind of a background the child comes from, particularly when it comes to the mother. So I'm not saying the fathers aren't involved, but many a times what we have seen is the mother takes the sole responsibility, but for some reason the fathers lack support to be able to get actively involved in bringing up a child who has a delay. So that is another day's topic. But like I said, in terms of gender biases, we have more females in this profession. But no, I have not had any issues of gender segregation or glass ceiling or those kind of things. And I think I don't think it will be the case in this profession, Lihini, because this profession is such a a grassroots profession.
And also it has this motherly feeling around it, right?
Correct, yes.
So I think it's more the emotional bond. It's not just another profession. If I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. So I think that's what drives a set of women, yes, another woman forward. So coming to that, I also wanted to ask you now, Nadini. Now, last year you got awarded the best young professional of the year. So at the New Generation Awards. So what do you feel to be awarded like that? How do you see this award? Is it just a recognition of your service, or do you see this as a responsibility?
Right. So again, so when I looked at the profile of people who had this awards, I was truly humbled, because most of these very young individuals were people who had made significant impact. And so again, number one, I felt humble, as well as I felt honored and proud that the recognitions that we have been making as professions, in our field, which is extremely new. And many a times the contribution that we make in our profession is not recognized. So I feel honored that our profession was recognized at this level. But going beyond that, Lihini, it's having a platform like this gives us the opportunity to be able to do effectively the work that we have already been carried. Because it's not like I would say many in our profession, nobody is really looking for a platform to serve, because they have already been given the opportunity to serve. The moment we qualify, we are endowed, we are empowered with so much of knowledge that we are able to change another person, another family, another child's, another person's life because of the knowledge that we have. So anyway, many in our profession are anyway committed and anyway working very hard towards what they are doing, towards their clients, towards the families that they take care of. So this platform, I feel, me as well as anyone, if somebody was awarded with this award, we would use this platform to bring about awareness, to bring about more service to for the service that we have been already doing. So that's what I aim to do, and also make sure that there is no stigma attached to child having a delay, but parents being aware that giving the necessary intervention at the right time, with the right person, will make a huge impact in that child's life. So that's what I really believe in.
I really like your way of thinking, Nadini. And now to spice things a little up, spice up the things. I would say now I know that you are newly married, right?
Yes,
and I
am.
also know that you have come to a point where you are a very successful medical professional. So being a career woman and being a newly married wife, how do you balance these two? Because I'm still unmarried, so your advice would actually be helpful to me. So go ahead.
I mean, so I got married. So before I got married, I was a very focused, very self-driven. I wouldn't say, very driven woman. So from the time I was 19, I started to work. Working while I'm in the university, writing for the paper. So very highly multitasking. So marriage, yes. I mean, I always wanted marriage. Marriage is something that that was in the cards, yes. And then of course you go through life and you go you go through certain things that you thought would work and it wouldn't work. So and then there comes a point when when you are perceived to be so established and so successful, so people would be like, "මේ තාම බැඳලා නැහැ, ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා, තාම ඇයි දන්නේ බැඳලා නැත්තේ." So and then I have been also told, I mean, ඔච්චර මේවා කරන්න එපා, කොල්ල බය වෙනවා මේ, don't get so qualified, don't do things to that well, it's going to be hard for you to find a man. So those are the stigma, those are the notions that the
misconceptions, social misconceptions,
yes,
right?
that people carry, and that
Yeah.
could sometimes that could get into a woman, to a young lady, to a young woman who is very driven towards a purpose, because they would think, I mean, they are gifted, they are talented to make an impact in society, but then these social notions can get into their head, and that can actually derail them from their focus. So for me, I'm thankful, for all the, honestly, I'm thankful for all the advice, the good advice I got, that at the right time it will happen, when it's supposed to happen, and at the right time, you have faith in what you have been having faith in, it will happen. So it did happen at the right time, and at that time, I was prepared, I was prepared not just to prioritize my work, but also to prioritize a relationship, prioritize another person. And so the good part was Lihini, so he, even today before I came, so he supports me, and he admires me for the work that I do, and he doesn't feel threatened or insecure by my achievements, because he's also more equally, he's more competent, and he's satisfied in his career. So and we look at it in a way where whether I benefit or he benefit, it's us who benefit. So it's no longer us being two units, but us being one entity. So in his workplace and in what he does, I take a back seat, and in the work that I do, he takes a back seat. So however, it's just a matter of prioritizing. I wouldn't call it balancing, but knowing when to prioritize, what to prioritize. Correct.
So basically flexibility in prioritizing.
Correct.
And the fact that you see marriage is not just a bond, it's actually a partnership, where both of you have to give 50%, and it depends on when and where the other one should give majority. So I think I personally learned a lot from speaking to you, Nadine. And it has been actually an amazing pleasure, great pleasure to have you here on the show with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the service that you do, for the fact that you show gratitude towards the government university system, and the work that you do trying to break the barriers, trying to break the misconceptions about speech impaired children. Yeah. So, and I just wish you all the best.
Thank you so much,
right?
Lihini, and with all the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.